Hey everybody, we're here tonight for our third installment of Shakespeare's Sonnet series. So tonight we'll be talking about Shakespeare's Sonnet number 3. We'll start out by reading the sonnet together, talk a little bit about some quick analysis and commentary, and then I will give you an assignment so you can write your own poem in the style of Shakespeare. So here we go, Shakespeare's Sonnet number 3. Look in thy glass and tell the face thou viewest, now in the time that face should form another, whose fresh repair, if now thou not renewest, thou dost beguile the world, unbless some mother. For where is she so fair, whose unearned womb disdains the tillage of thy husbandry? Or who is he so fond will be the tomb of his self-love to stop posterity? Thou art thy mother's glass, and she in thee calls back the lovely April of her prime. So thou through windows of thine age shall see, despite of wrinkles, this thy golden time. But if thou live remembered not to be, die single, and thine image dies with thee. So basically this is another one of Shakespeare's procreation sonnets. As we know, if we've been following along with this series, that the first 17 sonnets are dedicated to a fair youth, a young handsome man that Shakespeare hopes to inspire to have children of his own. So in this one, Shakespeare encourages the fair youth to look into the mirror. That's what he means when he says, look in thy glass. He's saying, look in the mirror. In Shakespeare's time, they typically would use the word glass to refer to a mirror. And basically encourages the fair youth to consider how now is the time to create another person. The fair youth is significantly younger than Shakespeare in this time. He's probably in his early 20s, maybe around 20 years old. So for the Elizabethan era, that's like prime time for having children. So Shakespeare says, fair youth, look in the mirror and understand that now is the time that you should be having a child. He goes on to say that there is no woman anywhere in the world who is too beautiful for the fair youth. Basically, Shakespeare says any woman out there would want to have a child with the fair youth. And he says that when he says, for where is she so fair, whose unaired womb disdains the tillage of thy husbandry? And there's a cool shout out to moms in this poem. So I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, who I'm sure is watching. She's probably the biggest fan of this series. So hey mom, thanks for watching. But Shakespeare in this sonnet says a really cool metaphor. He says, thou art thy mother's glass, which is basically you are your mother's mirror. You are your mother's reflection. So he uses that to say, hey, you're a reflection of your mom, and you should have kids that will then reflect your beauty. In the rhyming couplet at the end, Shakespeare suggests that if the fair youth does not have a child, he will die, and his image and his beauty will die with him. I think one of the big important images that's present in this poem is that idea of the mirror. So our assignment for today is going to deal with that. I want you to think about what you would want to encourage someone to look in the mirror and tell themselves. So I think that Shakespeare in this poem is encouraging the fair youth to look in the mirror and have a conversation with himself, some real talk with himself about what his role is in the world. And Shakespeare is encouraging the fair youth to look in the mirror and have that conversation. So I want you to think about writing a poem where you say to someone, look in the mirror and ask this question of yourself. And see if you can write it in the sonnet form, just as Shakespeare does. One challenge that I'd like to throw out there is that in this poem, Shakespeare mentions the season of April as being representative of youth, because April is the start of springtime, and typically that's a time when the Elizabethans would celebrate life and rebirth and nature and things like that. So I want to challenge you in this poem to see if you can include a reference to the spring. Either the month of April or some sort of seasonal nature imagery that would suggest springtime youth, because I think that we're starting to see some important images come here in the poem of the spring as representing youth and beauty. So we want to see if we can encapsulate that in our own writing. So again, what do you want to encourage someone to look into the mirror and tell themselves? You're going to write your own sonnet where you encourage someone to do just that. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Until next time, take care.